Hi, this video is going to look at solving equations with variables on both sides. The learning goal for this video is to solve equations involving variables on both sides, including with brackets and fractions using the balanced method. So we're going to have a quick overview of solving equations. So this video is assuming that you know a little bit already around solving equations, particularly using the balanced method. So we're going to use the analogy of a balance here in that both sides of this balance need to stay level. Same goes with these equations. So these two sides, this left side of an equation and the right side of an equation, are always equal, and that can't change. So if we change something about one side of the equation, we need to do the exact same type of change onto the other side. So for instance here, when we've got an equation 5/3 x minus 4 is equal to 26, remember our goal is to isolate x. So we want to get rid of this minus 4 that's on this side, or undo it on that side, as well as to undo the 5/3 here. So we're going to undo this minus 4 on the left-hand side here by adding 4. Okay, so that because minus 4 plus 4 will make 0. So that's the point. If we add 4 to the left side of this equation, though, we need to add 4 to the right side of the equation as well, right, to keep that balance. So the minus 4 and the plus 4, right, they will make 0. They subtract to 0. And so on the left side here, we still have 5/3 x is equal to 26 plus 4 is equal to 30. Now, with this 5/3, we can think about x as being divided by 3. So what we can do is we can undo that by doing the opposite, which is multiply by 3. So I'm just going to show that I'm going to multiply by 3 like this. Now, if I multiply by 3 on the left side, I need to multiply by 3 on the right side. So the 3 divided by 3, they'll divide out to make 1. So we are left here with 5x, and that's equal to 90. Now, 5 is multiplying with x here, so I'm going to undo that. That's the last thing we're going to undo. So the opposite of multiplying is dividing. So we're going to divide both sides by 5. Oh, so these will divide away. So x is equal to 18. So for the second equation here, we're going to do something similar, except here we can simplify here first. So what we can do is we can multiply the 3 with both the 5x and with the 2. So we can do 15x, and then 3 times the 2 is 6. That's plus 6 is equal to negative 114. So we're going to do something similar on as with the first equation. We are going to undo this plus 6, and then we're going to undo that 15 so that x is by itself. So to undo that plus 6 on this side, we're going to do the opposite, which is minus 6. Now we have to do that on both sides as well. So those two will subtract away, leaving me on the left side of the equation here, 15x is equal to, and then on the right hand side here we have negative 114 take away 6, it's negative 120. Now 15 is multiplying with x, so we're going to undo that by dividing. So we're going to divide both sides by 15. Okay, so those are going to divide away. So x is equal to negative 8. All right, so the big idea, remember, when we're solving equations is we're trying to isolate x, right? So that's the point. We want to isolate x, okay? And we do that by doing opposite operations, right? Or inverse operations in the opposite order of operations. So we do the adding or subtracting first, and then we do the multiplying and dividing second. All right, so what happens if we have an x on both sides of the equation? Because we're pretty good at solving an equation when x is on only one side. So we're going to try to make an equation look like that by first removing the variable from one of the sides. So you notice in this equation, 6x plus 9 is equal to 4x minus 7. So the goal is to get rid of one of them. Okay, either the 6x or the 4x. So what we're going to do is, what I'm going to tell you is the tip that I'm going to give you is look for the one that is smaller, okay, or lower in value. So 6x is greater than 4x, so you want to get rid of this 4x, okay? So it's easiest, okay, to remove the lowest variable term. Okay. Now the reason why is to avoid a negative term. So what I mean is, I'll just show you. So I'm going to take away 4x on this side because it's the smaller one. All right, now, just like from the previous questions, if I subtract 4x on one side of this equation, I have to go to the other side of the equation and do the exact same thing, subtract 4x. All right, so the 4x minus 4x, remember that makes a 0, they subtract away. So 6x here, though, take away 4x, leaves me with 2x. All right, I'm going to write this plus 9 is equal to negative 7. All right, now, you notice that I have a positive 2x here. Now, if I were to subtract 6x from both sides, which you totally can do, you're going to have on the right-hand side here 4x minus 6x, which would get you a negative variable term, which is not the worst thing in the world, okay? But negative numbers tend to cause people trouble, so it's best to try to avoid them. All right, so removing the lowest variable term will help you to avoid something that might be unnecessarily complex. Okay, so this is the key for today. Okay, if you can identify the smaller term and get rid of it, okay, now we're left with an equation, as you see, with x only on one side. All right, so now we go through what we've been doing before. I notice the x is on the left here, so I want to get rid of this plus 9 first, and then this 2 that's multiplying. So I'm going to subtract 9, okay, and I'm going to have to do that on both sides. So this plus 9 and this minus 9 are going to subtract away. I'm left on the left here with 2x is equal to, and on the right-hand side, negative 16. Now, 2 is multiplying with x, so I'm going to divide that by 2 to get rid of it. That means I also have to divide by 2 on the right side. So those 2's will divide away. So x here is equal to negative 8. All right. So the big tip when you have a variable on both sides is to remove one of them. And ideally, remove the one that's lowest. Again, it's not the end of the world if you remove the higher term. All right, let's try this with a couple more examples just so that you get the hang of it. I have 15 minus 3x is equal to 2x minus 40. We need to know what value of x would make that true. So we're going to solve this. I look for whichever x term is lower. So negative 3 is lower than 2. Okay, so I'm going to pick on this one. I am going to remove this negative 3x on this side by doing its opposite, which is add 3x. Okay. Now, if I add 3x on the left-hand side of this equal sign, I have to do the same thing on the right-hand side of the equal sign. This negative 3x and that plus 3x, okay, they will subtract out to make 0. So on the left here, I have 15 remaining is equal to, so 2x plus 3x is 5x minus 40. So the variable is on the right-hand side of the equation. That's okay, no big deal. I do notice that it's being subtracted by 40 and then multiplied by 5. So those are the two things that I need to remove from the right-hand side here. So I see this minus 40. I'm going to add 40, and I'm going to do that to both sides. Those will subtract away or add away to make 0. So I look on the left-hand side here, 15 plus 40 is 55 is equal to 5x. Now, 5 is multiplying with x, so I'm going to divide by 5. I have to do that to both sides, right? That's the rule. What I do on one side, I need to do on the other. So 5 here, and that 5 will divide away to make 1x, which I can just write as x. Okay, that's on the right. And then 55 divided by 5 is 11. So, if x is 11, that makes this statement true. Okay. Let's look at one more example here we have 6x minus 15 is equal to 9x plus 5. So remember, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to find which one is lower in value. It's this one. So I'm going to remove that one. I'm going to subtract 6x on this side to remove it. But then, of course, I have to do it on the other side of the equal sign. The 6x minus 6x are going to subtract away. I am left here with negative 15. Okay, so you got to be careful here. There's a minus sign here, so we have to make that negative 15 is equal to 9x take away 6x is 3x. And then this is plus 5. So again, the variable is on the right-hand side. That's okay. We are going to remove that plus 5 from here, as well as that 3 that's multiplying. So we are going to subtract 5 on both sides. So that plus 5 and the minus 5 will subtract away to make 0. On the left here, we have negative 15 minus 5. So that's negative 20 is equal to 3x. So 3 is multiplying with x here. So I'm going to do the inverse, which is to divide by 3. I have to do that to both sides. So 3 and the 3 will divide out to make 1x, which is just x. And negative 20 divided by 3 doesn't divide very evenly. So we are going to just leave it as a fraction, negative 20 thirds. Okay. So again, find the smaller x term and eliminate it. And then you're going to be left with an equation with a variable on only one side. And then you use inverse operations to solve for the variable. All right, so now it's your turn. Here's an equation with a variable on both sides. So remember to eliminate the lowest term and then go and solve the equation. So why don't you press pause now, give this question a try, and press play when you're done to see a solution. So if you solve this equation, we are going to eliminate the lower term, right, which is this one. And if you didn't, don't worry about it. You might just end up with a negative value, which is, again, that's fine. So to eliminate this negative 5x, we are going to add 5x on this side, which means, though, that we have to add 5x on the other side. So these will subtract away, and we are left with, on the left-hand side here, 18 plus 8x, right, because 3x plus 5x is 8x, is equal to negative 18. All right, the variable is on the left-hand side here, so we want to get rid of this 18 that's adding, and then this 8 that's multiplying. So we're going to get rid of that 18 by subtracting it, which means I have to do it on the other side as well. These will subtract away. I'm left with 8x is equal to negative 18, subtract 18 is negative 36. 8 here is multiplying with x on the left-hand side here, so we have to divide by 8. That will divide to get 1x. So I'm left with x is equal to negative 36 over 8. Okay, now we can reduce this fraction a little bit. I'm just going to write it up here. So x is equal to, now the biggest number that goes into both is 4. So you can divide the top and the bottom by 4. So you're left with negative 9 over 2. So again, hopefully you remove the lower variable term, leaving you with just an equation with one variable on one side, and then go through the inverse operations. Sometimes you need to reduce your fraction. Okay. So we're going to go a little bit harder on some of these, but it's really not that complicated if you just think about what the equation is sort of inviting you to do. So when you have brackets like this, the key is to simplify first and then solve it. All right. So when you've got a number out here outside the bracket, remember that this is multiplying, so you need to use the distributive property to multiply in. Okay. So if we simplify this on the left-hand side, we have 10x, right? 2 times 5x is 10x. 2 times 4 is 8, so we're going to write plus 8. Now we have negative 4 times 2x, so that's minus 8x. Negative 4 times 1, that's negative 4, so I'm going to write that there. So that's equal to 5x plus 9. All right, so I notice on the left-hand side here, there are some like terms. So I'm just going to highlight them here. So this is 10x minus 8x. So 10x minus 8x is 2x. So I'm going to write 2x. And then over here, we have this plus 8 minus 4. So 8 minus 4 is 4. So I'm going to write plus 4 is equal to 5x plus 9. All right, now we have an equation with a variable on both sides that we've just been looking at. I pick on the lowest variable term. So I'm going to subtract this 2x here. But then that means I have to do it on both sides. Right? These will subtract out. So on the left here I have 4 is equal to 5x take away 2x is 3x plus 9. All right, so the variable is on the right-hand side here, so I need to get rid of that plus 9 first, and then that 3 that's multiplying. So I'm going to subtract 9. So I'm going to do that on both sides. So 4 take away 9 is negative 5 is equal to 3x. Now the last thing that we're going to do, see if I can squeeze that in here, we're going to divide both sides by 3. So those 3's will divide away. So it looks like negative 5/3 is equal to x. So in a question with brackets, you'll want to simplify first. You may have some like terms, so just clean those up, and then go through with solving using that strategy of removing one of the variable terms, ideally the smaller one. All right, now what happens if you have a fraction? Now, fractions tend to complicate things, so you may want to eliminate the fraction first and then solve. So here we have 3/4 x plus 8 is equal to 2x minus 5. So this is, it's like dividing by 4. So to undo that, we need to multiply both sides by 4. All right, so when you multiply everything by 4, it's going to look, whoops, yeah, went up, something like this. All right, so we're going to multiply that term by 4. We're going to multiply this term by 4, all right, meaning, and also we're going to multiply this term by 4, and then also that term by 4. So the purpose of that is the 4 here and the 4 that's in the denominator will divide away. So I'm left with 3x plus 4 times 8, which is 32, is equal to 4 times 2x, so that's 8x, minus 4 times 5, so that's minus 20. So you see now we have an equation without a fraction that has variables on both sides. So again, we go with our strategy of eliminating the lowest term. So 3x is lower than 8x. So I'm going to subtract 3x, and I'm going to do that on both sides. So that 3x and that minus 3x will divide away. So I'm left with 32 is equal to 5x minus 20. So the x is over here on the right-hand side. Going to eliminate that minus 20 first, okay, by adding 20. I'm going to do that to both sides. So this will turn into 32 plus 20 is 52 is equal to 5x. Now the last thing that we're going to do is we're going to divide that 5 away. So we're going to divide both sides by 5. Those 5s will divide out. So at the end of the day here, 52/5 is equal to x. So the last thing that we're going to do is I'd like you to try one of each. So there's one here with brackets and there's one here with fractions. I invite you to give each of them a try. And then when you're ready to check out an answer, you can press play. So give that a go. All right, we're going to look at the one with the bracket first. So I'm going to turn the page. There we go. All right, so remember that we want to simplify this first. So we're going to do 2. We're going to multiply that into both terms inside the bracket. We also have that -4, so we're going to multiply into both. So 2 times 5x is 10x. 2 times -3 is -6. We have here -4 now outside of this bracket. Multiply that by 2x, so that's -8x. -4 times +1 is -4. And so that's equal to just what's on the right-hand side here, 6x plus 8. All right, remember that we can clean this up a little bit. So I noticed there's some like terms. Here, there's a 10x. Here's a -8x. So 10x minus 8x is 2x. Also, I see this -6 minus 4. So that will get me -10 if I simplify those two. And that's equal to what's on the right, 6x plus 8. All right, so now we're going to find which one's lower, which term is lower here, the 2x or the 6x. So it's going to be 2x. I'm going to eliminate that one. So I'm going to minus 2x on this side of the equation, so I have to minus 2x on the right-hand side as well. I'm going to subtract those two terms. So I'm left with, on the left-hand side, -10 is equal to 6x minus 2x. That's 4x plus 8. So we're just going to solve and isolate x on the right-hand side here. I'm going to subtract 8 on both sides. Oops. So I'm going to subtract those out. This will be -18 on the left and 4x on the right. I'm going to divide away the 4. So those will divide out. So I have here x is equal to -18 over 4. Okay. Now if I divide the top and the bottom by 2, I'm going to have -9 over 2. All right, the last one with a fraction. So remember the goal here, the easiest way to go about this, or hopefully the one that makes things the least complicated, is to remove that 2. So we are going to multiply both sides by 2. Okay, so meaning that we are actually multiplying every term by 2. All right, so we're going to multiply this by 2. We're going to multiply everything by 2. Now remember, the point of that is that this 2 and the 2 in the denominator will divide away. Okay. So let's see what happens when we simplify this. We have 2 times 4x is 8x. And then 2 times 8 is 16. That's equal to, now the 2 here has been divided out, so I'm left with 5x here minus 2 times 6, which is 12. So again, now we have an equation with a variable on both sides. So let's eliminate the lowest one, which is 5x. These will subtract away. So I'm left with 3x plus 16 is equal to -12. X is on this side, so we're going to isolate it. We're going to get rid of that plus 16 by subtracting 16, but we have to do that on both sides. So those will subtract away. So on the left, we have 3x is equal to -28. Now, 3 is multiplying by x. We're going to divide that away, but we have to do it on both sides. So the 3's will divide out. X is equal to, and that's not going to divide evenly, so we will leave it as a fraction of -28/3. All right, hopefully that's made solving equations with variables on both sides involving brackets and fractions a little bit more clear. So good luck with your equation solving adventures. Take care.